Okay, and we're back here now. Oh, here we go. Here's our questions. Okay. So, could you ask Henry eagerly? Well, I'll come. I'll bring some more cherry pickers. So the three said goodbye, and Henry started for home. He had another $1, a pocket full of old nails, a hammer, and a pile of vegetables he had left at noon. On the way home, he bought some salt. When he arrived at the boxcar, he began to smell a delicious smell. Onions, he shouted, running up to the kettle. I do like the smell of onions. I like the turnips best, said Violet. Jessie took off the cover carefully and stirred in the salt, and Henry sniffed the brown stew. It was boiling and boiling. A ladle of all things, cried Henry. Where did you get this? I found a tin cup in the dump, said Jessie. We used a long stick for a handle and tied it to the cup with a piece of wire. It makes a fine ladle. She ladled out the stew into plates and bowls and put a spoon in each one. Uh-oh, said Benny. I'm so hungry. I must eat my supper. The meat was well cooked and the vegetables were delicious. Violet passed her plate for more turnips. I'd like some more onions, said Henry. All the children ate until they could eat no more. That was the best meal I ever ate, said Jessie. Me too, said Violet. I have time tonight to make Benny's cart, remarked Henry. We'll want a cart. Will you make it with my wheels, asked Benny. Yes, with your wheels, answered Henry. But you must cart stones in it when I get it done. Yes, said Benny. I'll cart stones or rocks or anything you need. Tomorrow will be Sunday, and I can stay at home, Henry went on. Do you think it's all right, Jessie, to build the dam for a swimming pool on Sunday? Yes, I do, said Jessie. We're making the swimming pool so you can keep clean. Henry began happily to hammer out the bent nails with his new hammer. Soon he had some good nails. You and I will go find some boards, Benny, he said. Come on. Soon the boys came back with some boards from the dump. Henry sat down and began to make the cart. He could not see very well because it was getting dark and there was no moon, but at last the cart was done and he gave it to Benny. Thank you, said Benny politely. After his sisters had admired their cart, Benny pulled it around just for fun. Then Henry put it in the boxcar for the night. Henry said to Jessie, I hope we do not hear that strange noise again tonight. I hope not too, said Jessie. Then she laughed. Look at Benny, she said. He had gone to sleep with his hand on his cart. Henry laughed too, but he laughed at himself because he was going to sleep with his new hammer under the pillow. Chapter 8. A Swimming Pool at Last. The boxcar children were so tired that they slept until 10 o'clock Sunday morning. When they woke up at last, they hurried to breakfast and went to work on the swimming pool. We'll make a dam across the brook, said Henry. Here's my cart, said Benny. I'll cart stones and logs in it. Good for you, laughed Henry. First, the 4 children went down the brook to look at the pool Jessie had seen. The water was quiet here, and there was clean sand all around the little pool. It's big enough for a swimming pool, Henry remarked, but I don't think it's deep enough. He put a long stick in it to see how deep it was. When he looked at the wet stick, he found the water was only about a foot deep. So the swimming pool should be 3 times as deep, he said. Then it will be deep enough to swim in. It won't be too deep for Benny. We'll build the dam here with logs and stones. While the other children started the dam, Jessie washed all their stockings. We don't want our stockings on while we're working in the brook, she remarked, as she rinsed them and hung them on the clothesline to dry. So this is a good time to wash. It was hard work building the dam and washing, but the children liked hard work. Henry and Jessie pulled the logs to the brook, and Violet and Benny carried the stones, with the help of the cart. Now and then Henry was called on to help with a heavy stone, but the two younger children carried most of them. Splash the stones right into the water, Henry told them, but be careful to keep them in line between those 2 trees. The children watched with delighted eyes as the wall of stones under the water began to grow higher and higher. The rock wall will help to hold the logs in place, said Henry. At last it was time to lay the logs across the brook. Let's lay the first one between those 2 trees, said Jessie. Then the trees will hold both ends of the logs. Good work, cried Henry, much pleased. That's just what we'll do. But when the first big logs were splashed into place on top of the stone wall, the water began to run over ends of the logs and around both ends. Oh dear, cried Jessie. The water just runs all around them. What shall we do? Well, we'll have to put lots of logs on with brush between them, said Henry. We'll put on so many that the water can't get through. They laid 3 logs across, with 3 more on top of those, and 3 more on top of those. Violet filled her arms with brush and held it in place until each log was laid. Benny filled the holes. Benny filled the holes at the ends of the logs with flat stones. Such wet children never were seen before, but the hot sun would dry them off, and no one cared anyway. When the last 3 logs were laid into place at last, the 4 tired children sat down to watch the pools fill. But Henry could not sit still as the water came higher and higher up the dam. See how deep the pool is getting, he cried. See how full it still is? At last the pool was full, and the water came over the top of the dam and made another waterfall. Just like a mill dam, said Henry. Now the pool is deep enough for all of us to swim in. You boys can have the first swim, she said. Said Jessie. We girls must go and get dinner. We'll ring the bell when we're ready. The boys splashed around the pool while the girls made a fire and hung the kettle brown stool over it, stirring it now and then. Violet cut the bread and then got the butter, hard and cold, out of the refrigerator. When everything was ready, Jessie rang the dinner bell. This bell was only a tin can from the dump. Jessie had hung it on a tree with a string, and she rang it with a spoon. Then she got the ladle and began ladling the stew. "That's the dinner bell," said Benny. I know what it is. Come on, Watch. Don't you want some dinner?" Watch had had a swim too. He came out of the water and shook himself. The two boys put on their dry clothes and went to Sunday dinner. "Let me ring the bell again," said Benny. "I like stew even better today," said Henry, eating hungrily. "That's because we work so hard," remarked Jessie. "Let's go for a walk in the woods this afternoon." "Oh, let's," cried Violet. "Let's go exploring." After they were done, Benny and Henry washed the dishes, while the girls got to go for a swim. After that, they went for a walk. As they went along, Watch began to bark. At first, the explorers were frightened. "Oh, what is it?" cried Violet. "Maybe it's a rabbit," said Henry. Then they saw a hen running through the woods. Watch ran after her, but Henry called him back. "Don't run after that poor hen," he said. "The hen had a nest," remarked Benny. "What?" asked Jessie. "She had some eggs in it," said Benny. "Come and see." Jessie looked on the ground where Benny was pointing and saw a nest with 5 eggs. "A runaway hen," said Jessie. She wanted to hide her nest so she would have some chickens. "We'll have the eggs for supper. I know how to cook eggs." The eggs made a delicious supper. Jessie put them in a bowl with a little salt, and Violet took a spoon and stirred them as hard as she could. "Now we'll put in some milk," said Jessie, and stirred them more. Henry started up the fire. The big kettle was hung over the fire, and Jessie put in some butter. She watched the butter until it was nice and brown and put in the eggs. "Sit down," she said. "We'll be ready to eat when the eggs are done." Everyone else helped set the table with the tablecloth. Then they got the bread and butter and plates and spoons, and all the children finally sat down ready to eat supper. "Here I come!" cried Jessie. "Hold out your plates for eggs." "Oh, Jessie," cried Benny, "this is the best meal I ever ate. I found the eggs, and you cooked them." "Yes, you did, Benny," said Henry. "Thank you for a fine meal." "Tomorrow we'll have to eat bread and milk," said Jessie. But when tomorrow came, the children had more than bread and milk, as you will soon see. And now you get to answer some of these questions. So, they built quite a bit in this one, just besides the swimming pool, but the swimming pool was what they were most excited about. But again, what have you built and how did it go building it? How did you build it? So you can just kind of talk about like the steps or things that you did to build it. How did you feel once you finished it and why? And if you were living like the Boxcar children, what would you make near your home? So if you were doing this, what kinds of things would you want? Okay, have fun answering those. And we do have another good discussion board today. This one's a little bit different. Would you still try to go to the doctor or the dentist if you were living like the Boxcar children? Why or why not? So just something that I was just kind of thinking about it as I was reading. If you would still try to go do those things. Okay, have fun, and I'll see you for the next lesson.